Hey, this is Dizzy Reed from Guns N' Roses, and you're watching GNR Central. Yeah!
Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Guns N' Roses Central. And today I want to talk about the true story behind Slash and Iggy Pop. There's going to also be some references to Duff McKagan, but a lot of people know that Iggy Pop played on Slash's 2010 self-titled album on the song We're All Gonna Die. But before we can really talk about that song, let's talk about Slash and Iggy Pop and how far back they went. So Slash knew Iggy Pop as far back as when he was a kid. So Slash's mom was dating David Bowie at the time, and according to an article that I posted here, it looks like the reason that Slash even met Iggy Pop was through David Bowie. There was at least one show where Iggy Pop and Guns N' Roses shared the same bill. So if you guys have seen the documentary Photographic History, there's a section in there where Slash is talking about a photo which is sort of taken behind Axl while he's on stage in front of a crowd. And it was at Guns N' Roses' final show of the Aerosmith tour, according to Slash. And it was in Texas, and they had a very eclectic bill. They had Guns N' Roses, Iggy Pop, NXS was headlining, Ziggy Marley, and I think the Replacements were there as well. And Slash said it was one of the worst gigs that they ever performed. So in 1990, Iggy Pop releases his album Brick by Brick, and it features Slash as well as Duff McKagan on the record. And even a music video is put out for the song Home, which features both Duff and Slash in the music video. So the same year, Slash gave an interview to Guitar World magazine where he talked about collaborating with Iggy Pop and how it led to him working with Bob Dylan later on in the year. So Guitar World asked him, were you always an Iggy Pop fan? To which Slash said, I was a little young when the Stooges were in their heyday, but I've always been aware of Iggy and his work. If you're into the whole rock and roll trip, it's hard not to be aware of Iggy's influence. He and I initially met when we did a benefit together at the Roxy in LA. We rehearsed a few songs the day before, then went on stage and kicked ass. We fit together attitude and style-wise pretty well. He also went on to reveal that the Brick by Brick producer Don Was was also producing Bob Dylan's new record at the time. He was so happy with the way that Iggy's record turned out, he asked me if I wanted to play on Dylan's new project. I agreed, even though I'm not what you would call a huge Bob Dylan fan, especially as of late, but I was curious and wanted to check it out. The scene at the studio was a total trip. I walked in at 2 p.m. and George Harrison and Kim Basinger were there hanging out. I did a double take on that one. Next, I noticed a little guy wearing leather gloves and a hooded surfer sweater, which struck me as odd because it was warm outside. Finally, I realized it was Bob Dylan. I thought, what's going on here? Anyways, Dylan and I spoke and he was pretty quiet. George was laying down some slide and we started getting drunk and stuff. Then they started to ask me to play a song with a pretty silly title called Wiggle Wiggle. I just learned it on the spot. It was such a simple yet superb 1-4-5 progression that there really isn't much to say about it. In another interview that Slash did the following year in Rolling Stone, he was asked about whether he was up to any other sessions recently. He said, Les Paul called me up to play on this tribute record where he's producing tracks by Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, and all these cats. So I took another song called Burnout, which was supposed to be a Guns N' Roses tune, and got Iggy Pop to sing on it and Kenny Aronoff to play drums. Duff's going to play bass and Lenny sang backup on it. When we're at the studio, Les Paul said to me, you're pretty good. When'd you learn how to play? Thank God. That was pretty effing intense. I just sort of crept away. So Slash and Duff would play on the same 4 songs on Brick by Brick. They'd play on Home, Butttown, Pussy Power, and My Baby Wants to Rock and Roll. So let's talk about how the album Brick by Brick actually performed. So it was released in June of 1990, and the album would end up peaking at number 90 on the Billboard 200 charts and stayed on the charts for 37 weeks. So the song Livin' on the Edge of the Night was released before the album as a soundtrack to the hit movie Black Rain, which starred Michael Douglas and Andy Garcia. The song would end up reaching number 16 on the Modern Rock tracks. Candy reached number 30 on the Mainstream Rock tracks, number 5 on the Modern Rock tracks, and number 28 on the Billboard Hot 100. And the first single from the album, which featured Slash, Home, and Duff, reached number 2 on the Modern Rock tracks. So Brick by Brick became Iggy Pop's first RIAA certified gold album with more than 500 copies sold. So after completing the album, Iggy conducted a successful world tour. His 1991 performance in Paris was recorded and later released on DVD, and several famous fans appeared on stage with Iggy during the tour, including longtime fan Johnny Depp. Now, in 1993, Guns N' Roses would release their album The Spaghetti Incident. It would be the last studio album released by the band, and it featured the Stooges song Raw Power as the 5th track on the album, and Guns N' Roses also recorded another Stooges song called Down on the Street, but it never ended up making the record. 2 years later, Duff McKagan as well as Matt Sorum would join Iggy Pop on stage in Las Vegas, There's a clip if you guys want to watch it on YouTube, and they perform the song Raw Power on stage. Now, Slash isn't the only Guns N' Roses guitarist to have performed with Iggy Pop. So Buckethead performed with Iggy Pop back in 1994. He released an album called Giant Robot, which featured 2 songs that had Iggy Pop on them, including Buckethead's Toy Store and Post Office Buddy. Fast forward now to 2004, Velvet Revolver have put out their first album, Contraband, and of course they are doing press to promote the record. And Slash has some nice things to say about Scott Weiland. He makes some comparisons to Scott Weiland and Iggy Pop. He said that it's great to be back together with his former Guns N' Roses bandmates, and that Scott Weiland is Iggy Pop, David Bowie, Johnny Rotten, and Mick Jagger all in one body. Also, the director Kevin Karslake, who directed the music video for Slither, which was the first single off of Contraband, also worked with Iggy Pop on some of his music videos as well. In 2008, Guns N' Roses bassist Duff McKagan would end up interviewing Iggy Pop, so if you guys want to see the entire exchange, I've linked to it down below. Fast forward 2 years later, and Iggy Pop would end up singing on Slash's first solo record titled Slash. And here's Slash talking about working with Iggy Pop in 2 different interviews.
Iggy Pop I met when I was probably 7, you know. But yeah, Iggy was the first guy to come in and sing, and he sort of set the pace for the whole record. And I've worked with Iggy a lot over the years, and he is one of the ultimate rock and roll icons. You know, like has had a major influence on everybody. You know, even inadvertently. You know, and I sent him the song, and he called me up, and he was singing the lyrics, and in the middle of the room on the other side of the phone with the demo playing in the background. And he goes, "This is how it goes." Anyway, and it was very energetic and very, you know, enthusiastic and whatnot. And so he came in and came into one afternoon and just sort of gave me this great fucking, again, great lyric and great energy and stuff. And that was basically how the record got started. You know, I gotta say that first. You know, like, the first, 12 songs that we did, everybody came in and it just went bam, 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 you know. So, we started in, I think it was, May or something like that, and in July we had pretty much the whole record. Then everything slowed down because I had a few songs. I had to get vocalists who were out on the road, and everything got sort of whatever. But that first sort of initial run was, pretty much 75% of the record. It was just one artist after the other.
Here's a separate interview that Slash did where he talked about how the song dates back to 2004, but nothing was ever done with it in Velvet Revolver, and he just decided to use it on his solo record.
I did with Iggy Pop, and Iggy and I have a pretty long history. I've known him since I was basically pretty young, or at least we met. I don't know if he remembers meeting me back then, but I was pretty much a little kid. But also one of the huge heroes in rock and roll, and a huge influence on me, and just an icon. And I love working with him. And this particular piece of music was something that I wrote in 2004 as it came to me in a dream. The actual music came to me in a dream, and I got up and I sort of made a quick demo of it. And it was introduced with Velvet Revolver, but just never turned into a song. So when I was doing my solo record, I thought I got to resurrect that piece of music. And so I did. And as I was writing it, all of a sudden I was thinking Iggy Pop would be the perfect guy to sing this. So I sent the song to Iggy, and Iggy called me up a couple days later in true sort of rock and roll fashion. He calls me up and he goes, "Here, check this out." And he plays the tape on a stereo in the back of the room somewhere, puts the phone down on a table and starts singing it live in the middle of the room. And it was just such a cool, it's old school moment for me.
The song We're All Gonna Die would also end up being featured in the video game Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock as downloadable content. So in 2014, there was a list of the greatest singers of all time, and it was basically assembled by a website called concerthotels.com. They attempted to quantify what makes a great singer, and they ranked Axl Rose at the top of their list. So the list primarily focused on the singer's vocal range and said that Axl had a 5-octave vocal range. Also joining Axl on the list included Steven Tyler, Robert Plant, Iggy Pop, and Kurt Cobain. In 2015, it was reported that Slash, Lemmy, Grace Jones, and Iggy Pop were going to be appearing in a silent movie called Gutter Damarang. Now, Jeff and I have actually interviewed the director of the movie, and you guys can go check out the interview down below. The movie, according to IMDb, is about a punk angel that's played by Iggy Pop, who's sent to Earth to test humanity and set the world on fire. So that does it for this episode of Guns N' Roses True Story. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what your thoughts are on Iggy Pop and his collaboration with Guns N' Roses, and whether you guys are even fans of Iggy Pop. Comment in the section below. Be sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to share it. You guys can also hit the subscribe button if you love all things related to Guns N' Roses, and go follow us on GNRCentral.com for the latest and greatest Guns N' Roses news. Alternatively, you guys can also go support us on Patreon if you want to see us to continue to make videos just like this, and if you guys want to get exclusive behind-the-scenes stuff and access to videos before everybody else in my subscriber base gets to see them. Take care.
Listen, you're watching Guns N' Roses.